Yo, this is the Streetwise podcast. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a franchise consultant, a multi-brand franchise owner, a father, a husband, a fitness enthusiast. And it is my mission to help you get off of zero and join the rest of us in achieving your dreams. Get your popcorn ready, buckle up, let's go. All right, y'all, here we go. On today's episode, we talked to Jeromy Levealle. He's an adjuster with Remedy Claims Consulting. He's also a podcast host of The Rumble. Jeromy and I go back. We've networked together for a while out here in DFW. We talk about podcasting, we talk about mindset, we talk about leadership, and just being a creative, not procrastinating, not putting perfection before progress. This is a good one. Now, this conversation is broken up a little bit. This is the first part, and I'm excited to have you listen. All right, let's go. All right, so you're in the podcasting game. So you guys, how long have you been doing the podcasting stuff now?
Well, I started toying around with it really and truly. There was sort of like, let me see what this is like. Let me figure this out. Let me learn all about the different equipment. Let me see, kind of try my hand at it. Let me see if I can do it as inexpensively as possible. And so I started just about a year ago. And I was working with a guy in the public adjusting field that does all kinds of like podcasts and YouTube things. And he was the one that really kind of inspired me to kind of step into that kind of thing. And I have always kind of been a sound nut anyway, because I'm a musician, right? And so all of this gear is rather familiar to me, but I knew that I was looking for a very particular sound. I knew what I was looking for. And I was also, when I was a kid, really interested in radio. I wanted to be a radio disc jockey for music is what I essentially went to college for. I went to college for radio, television, and film. Well, I was enrolled in college. I didn't attend much, but I was enrolled.
Okay. So, fair enough.
But, and I've always kind of been really, really interested in it. And I wanted that really clear, crisp radio sound, and I couldn't quite figure it out, right? So I kind of had this layoff and then all of the burden of editing, and I am the first person that will let perfect get in the way of good every chance I absolutely can. And so because I couldn't quite drill it down, I kind of laid off. And then we decided to roll out a podcast called The Rumble right at the first of this year. And we started recording a couple of episodes towards the end of, it was like right around the freeze that we had in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right around Christmas or whatever, that we started recording stuff. And I absolutely fell in love with it. We built kind of a studio here at home. Got some microphones, got an audio interface, and I realized that it doesn't take much to really kind of step into it. It's a very low investment by and large. Now, I'm not going to say it's $12 and you're up and running. I'm not going to say that because there's cost associated with anything when you're trying to draw an audience of any kind, right? I mean, even guys on the corner have the milk crate that they have to stand on, right? So
sure, yeah, very true.
So I, because I'm aware of these sorts of things and I wanted it to come off with a really professional sound, is where I started digging in and trying to find different ones. And like one of the biggest purchases that I made, one of the thing that I would never go back and live without is an audio interface. And what I bought was the Zoom P8 audio interface. And I love the thing. It is very similar to the Rodecaster 2, if you know what I'm saying, and it's got all the different sound effects, pads and things like that. That way, if I tell a joke or something and, I'm recording a podcast, and the laughter and the clapping needs to happen. So I've got clapping when I walk into the studio. If I tell a joke,
oh, that's awesome.
There's a lot of people that are concerned about Botox, but when you try to raise awareness, no one will even raise an eyebrow.
That's good.
So,
That's
you know,
good.
and I loved all of those little nuances that you could add to a podcast show. And I think one of the things that I really kind of jumped into was envisioning the audience like right there. So, I mean, like right now, you and I are recording. We're not in a live setting, but I don't let my brain think that. And so I always want to have, you know, I fully believe that there are people out there listening at home right now, right
Right
this
this
very second. And they, in fact, you know, they pulled over to make sure they changed their radio station. They pulled up the podcast app and they're listening in the car. And I just love the whole concept of this. I love the whole concept. And I often get asked, it's like, you know, I have people tell me all the time, it's like, well, I would do a podcast, but I'm just afraid no one would listen. And I'm like,
Been told that myself. Yeah.
you know, and I'm like, well, let me ask you something. Like, what do you mean by no one? Do you mean like absolutely no one? Or do you mean like 10 or 12? And it's like, because we compare ourselves to these YouTube gurus, whether it's you know, Jenna Marbles, or you can look at Joe Rogan, who have millions and millions and millions, and they're getting paid all of this money. And look, if that's your goal right out of the gate, I mean, not even Joe Rogan was Joe Rogan right out of the gate, right? He was just some dude.
Very true.
He was just some dude, talented guy. And so that's what I think is when you decide to put your talents on display, you know what I'm saying? Whether win or lose, succeed or fail, whatever the question may be, it doesn't really matter. More than likely, you're going to impact someone, you know, and what you feel is not what you're feeling could really bring life and encouragement to a person who thinks that they're absolutely all alone. And I just pictured myself, and I asked myself this one question. If I were standing in the middle of Times Square and I stood up on that milk crate that I talked about earlier and I started talking, and I'm talking Times Square on New Year's Eve, where there is so much other things going on other than to turn around and listen to me, do I believe 5, 6, 7 people may turn around and listen to what it is I have to say, even if they just think I'm crazy? Look, that's 7 people that are interested in what's going on and what's going through my head at that particular time. And I might just be able to impact them for the positive. I might be a voice of encouragement. I might be, you know, a voice of education. I might impart something that somebody didn't know. And so this podcasting platform, because I mean, my calendar is wide open for radio and television interviews. But in the age of the internet, you've got your own show, Matt. I mean, congratulations. Right. You've got your very own show that people show up for. You know what I'm saying? That people like myself. I was so excited about this because you and I have been going back and forth about this for months. Right. We have talked about this for a lot. For those of you listening that don't understand why Matt and I know each other, we actually were in and I say we're in a networking group together and just really kind of hit it off. And I so enjoyed kind of like your approach, and you did your little 8-minute presentation. And I was like, man, that is a guy that I got to get to know. I got to understand who he is, because you want to talk about grind. This guy grinds like wakes up in the morning and he goes from can to can't. You know what I'm saying? It's not sun up to sundown, it's can to can't. And I love that about you, you know, and it's like, and he doesn't work stupid either. It's not about just getting out there and sweating all day long. It's like, man, you go after, I know you've had a lot of inspiration, a lot of help, a lot of, you know, stepping stones along the way, a lot of encouragement. But man, what a way to avail yourself of those things around you to build what you've built. And I personally just want to give you a round of applause for doing all.
Hey, thank you.
And I mean, you have been, I mean, what a great thing that you've done and what you're putting together. And now you're actually getting your voice out there so people can hear and be encouraged, for whether it's podcasting. It's like, look, I don't care if you have a podcast on China dolls. There is somebody that wants to know what you know about China dolls, you know, but you've got this podcast on entrepreneurship. You got it on just podcasting, those kinds of things. And I'm telling you, people want the real. They don't want the rehearsed. We've seen plenty of rehearsed. We can turn on our television, our streaming platforms. We can watch Netflix. We can see the rehearsed. The rehearsed is readily available. What we want to see is the raw and the real. And I'm not talking about reality television. I'm talking about let's flip on the lights, let's see what happens, and then let's go from there. And I just personally want to commend you for stepping out and doing, I say brave, but just it's daring, really and truly, daring to put yourself out there.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building, Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure to be able to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. If you've always wanted to start your own business, but you don't know where to start. If you want to leave that corporate job, but you're a little afraid to take the risk, I'm here to help. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I've learned what it means to build a team, to run a business, to struggle. And I know, based on my experience, how to help others find the right ideal business for them. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. Man, I appreciate that so much. That was I'm definitely making that a clip, and I'm gonna post that clip everywhere, man. That was really kind. I appreciate that. But it's true. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, I may not change the world, but I guarantee I will spark the mind that will change the world.
Sure.
And what you had said earlier about how you will let perfection get in the way of good and how you're kind of wired that way. I've just always been the opposite, and it's done me well, and it's put me in some tough situations at times, but it's just the concept of progress over perfection. And I say it all the time now, but it took me 5 years to make the very first episode of this podcast. And then episode 2 took me about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
But at 5 years just to get the first episode off the ground and just to do it and just take the step. And it is such a cool platform, and it is cool when you can get out there and
super cool.
You can
so
impact people and just bring people together. And one of the funniest things that I've realized now is, if I were to hit up an executive on LinkedIn and I'm like, hey, Mr. Executive, could I buy you lunch? Could I, get coffee? Could I sit down and have an hour of your time for a call? Depending on the executive, I'm probably not getting a call back from that person. But if I say, hey, Mr. Executive, I got a podcast and I would love to interview you, I have not been turned down yet.
They will run over old ladies and small children.
Get out of the way. Let's go. I would love to be featured.
Yes. Let's talk about me. I love that. I love that plan. Enough about me. Let's hear you talk about me now. So, I mean, and it's funny that you bring that out, because I think it's hysterical. I cannot tell you the number of people, and I've got a small little following in my podcast, and it's not, I don't have thousands and thousands of listeners. What I do have is a lot of consistency and a lot of effort to bring something that I believe has a lot of value behind it. Do you know what I'm saying? So, and don't misunderstand what I mean. I don't mean production value. I could get on Fiverr or Upwork and find all of the video editors and all of those people in the world that are willing to help me spend my money on putting together this awesome produced kind of podcast. I am never going to be, there's no, that at some level that's just not sustainable, Matt. You've got to look at what you're able to sustain and realize your thoughts, your passions, your desires are good enough. And I think that is one of the most important things that you can realize. And I fought with this. I said at the beginning of the show, I am the first person that will let perfect get in the way of good every time. I am an absolute perfectionist. And I to this day still don't do a video podcast because I still want the editing to be right. You know what I mean? But then I'm watching your clips and I totally don't care. What I care about is the content. Do you know what I'm saying? You even put a clip. You had a little clip that you had a reel on Facebook, and it was talking about you were struggling with the audio. It's like, now I've got a mic and I've got this kind of stuff and I have all this great content, but but the audio is so like, and it's like, there we go. That perfectionism is insidious, right? It's a very insidious thing that will creep in and begin to control and stifle and tear you down. Whereas
grab you by the back of the neck, man, and just guide you if you let it.
It will. And you just can't. And so what I did was I just sent a solution. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. And I just wanted you to have a solution. If it doesn't work, let me encourage you, whether that solution works or doesn't work, do not withhold fire content from people who desperately need to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't really care. Let me ask you something. If the Powerball people called you up and their cell phone was kind of breaking up, would you care? All you want is the news, man. Just give me the honest news that you are the Powerball winner. You've won,
give me the money, man.
$400 million. I mean, do you care what kind of version or how that information gets to you?
No, I don't.
Really don't.
Yeah, no, I don't.
You don't. What you want is the information. The medium doesn't matter. And I'm just glad that we have this medium that allows us to reach several people at one time and on a consistent basis, because this thing gets recorded, it's put out there, and it may be 4 or 5 years, Matt. Somebody's running through YouTube or running through Spotify, and they pull up this podcast that we're shooting in June of 2023, and it could be they could be listening to podcasts in 2027, and they're struggling with procrastination, and perfection manifests itself in procrastination, by the way. If you're struggling with procrastination, more than likely you're struggling with perfectionism, and perfectionism will ruin you. It will absolutely keep the good thing that you are from everybody that desperately needs it. And I'm telling you this, I say this not because I got it all figured out. I say this because it's a daily decision. It's a daily decision for me to get up and go, okay, these are the things I'm going to accomplish today. And I am very in the present. There's a lot of mindfulness to that, and I didn't get on this podcast to really just preach about this stuff, but I mean, I am so aware of the struggle that all of us have. And I love that it has manifested for me in podcasts, because when I look at it, it becomes a bit of a microcosm of how I even approach my professional life. I would procrastinate because the amount of work and what was in front of me seemed to be so daunting. You know what I'm saying? And that I would never be able to put out a good work product. So I would just put it off until I felt like I was capable of doing it. And I'm telling you, work only stacks up. It doesn't dwindle down. And I've talked with my two boys. One's 18, getting ready to go to college. The other one's 15, headed into his sophomore year of high school. And my youngest one, he doesn't have a lot of my traits, but the one trait that he did pick up for me is the procrastination thing. And I am just, as I am figuring this out at the ripe old age of 50, you know what I mean? As I'm figuring these things out, how much better would I have been if I could have figured this out at 30? So if you're 29, perk up and listen. If you're struggling with procrastination, that means you have a perfectionism problem. It's really a passive-aggressive response to failure.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you for making it to the end. Hey, if you like this episode, if it added value in any way to your life, do me a favor, give it a like, share it with a friend, give me a review, leave a comment, whether that's a rocket emoji, thumbs up, a fire, 100 emoji, leave me something. It's the only way to get this out there to other people, and I appreciate you so much for listening. As always, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.